Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial technician. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, Highlift Financial can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family, and align these for generational wealth. So as they say, what happens in your life affects your business. And now, on to the show. Well, hello, and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And one of the things I really enjoy and really love about the collision industry is the passion that people have for it. It's really just kind of amazing. I don't think I've worked with business owners from all different walks, but I don't think I've ever found an industry where the people in it are passionate, and even those owners that exit their shop still want to contribute in some way. And so I think that's very unique about the industry. And so I'm excited to have Frank Phillips, who's got 35 years in the collision industry and is extremely passionate about it. He's kind of worked in all different areas of collision, where starting out as an estimator with an insurance company. He's been with Caliber. He's done work with Rivian. He's currently working with ADAS. And what I'm really excited about is just kind of talking to him. And our conversation is really going to be about just kind of his perspective on the industry, things that are happening now, because we know things are evolving on a very rapid level. And it's not your father's body shop anymore. So, Frank, I want to welcome to you Your Business, Your Life.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with you this afternoon. Just kind of perusing our passion, right? I mean, that's you kind of kicked it off exactly right. I think it's fun to reflect on 35 years and think about the passionate people that I've met across this industry, across the world. It's interesting, collisions. It's a big segment when you really kind of dig into it and where it touches pretty much every industry that has to deal with automotive. Collision is associated in some capacity, and I've got to experience that through different opportunities to travel. And you mentioned a few of my jobs along the way, stops along the way, and the folks that I got to meet, and the passion that just oozes from everybody that's in this business. It is why it's why we all stay here, right? I say it all the time. This industry has been remarkably good to me and my family. I want to leave it better than I found it. I want to continue to help to improve and find ways to help folks that are on that same path. And oddly enough, we just had that exact conversation this morning with a couple of my young techs that are here in our calibration center in Argyle, Texas. And same thing, right? They're both just barely crossing the age of 30, and they just have a few years in the business. And we talk about what that history is and the passion that is here, and how many shop owners are out there that are looking to do it the right way, looking to bring the quality standards up, and then how many shops just tend to kick the can and just keep doing things the way they've always done it. And and that's what we're here for, to try to fix, right?
That's exactly right. And, an old mentor of mine used to tell me, he wasn't a doctor, he doesn't play one on TV, but he knows when your business is flatlining, that means you're dead.
Right.
And I think that's so true. And I think, we can't coast anymore. And especially with evolving technologies, especially in the collision industry, that we need to be on top of a lot of those things. So, I guess really to kind of get started, I want to talk a little bit about how your experience, because you've kind of had these varying roles out there, how that's helped you to kind of shape your perspective on what's currently happening in the industry, and how you see, the shops need to adapt.
Yeah. Matt, I think my biggest challenge, frustration, I won't call it a disappointment, because disappointment's not the right way to describe it. I think the obstacle that the industry continues to battle, and for a myriad of justifications, is really that true focus on fixing a car properly. Yeah. And I think that's where my experience has kind of tailored me over the years. I think about being a teacher. I started out as decades ago as a technician, and said, wow, I worked in a small town. This commission thing, not for me. This is not going to be a way I'm going to make a living. So I pivoted and got into education and went to my alma mater and started teaching kids that wanted to do this, that were passionate about the business. And foundational, right? If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Let's figure out how we fix cars correctly. And I just kind of expanded my career onto that. Went to the insurance space and learned quickly that Well, right isn't always what their focus is on. It's more about cost control and some of the factors that come into playing when you're working in the insurance environment as a bill payer.
Yeah.
Then you get into the MSOs and their business model, completely different than an independent model, and how they attack the business and where is their passion at in the grand scheme of multiple shops and having multiple locations in multiple markets and states and regions and so forth. And then you get into the manufacturer side of things, and where's their passion? Passion's on selling cars and developing and designing products that people are appealed to, right? And pulled to. But do they focus much time on the after sales piece of it from a repair perspective, and that feels like constant battle between repairers and insurers and manufacturers and consumers, and trying to navigate all of those silly things that create a safe and proper high quality repair that I think we're all theoretically striving for.
Right.
But the obstacle, right, with the large number of shops is that education's hard and it takes time out of my daily business, and I can't stop what I'm doing in the shop and afford to go learn something to be able to raise my business standard, my quality of repair, my outcome and my output and my profit, because I can't, there's too many fires here that I got to keep putting water on.
Yeah.
And I can't pause, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because I speak a lot about, again, as a financial planner and an exit planner, we talk a lot about the aspect of how do you raise value in your business. And I show owners all the time that, too many of them are still in the operator mentality where, they're in the business all the time. And I've gotten a complaint from a number of owners that, well, I wish I had time to work on the business, not just in the business. But you know what? You've got to make that time to do it. And it's really, right? It's interesting. I know even in my practice, I'm in the process of hiring people to do a lot of the busy work that used to consume my time. Why? Because I need to be focusing on what's my unique genius. Okay. And I think a lot of shop owners miss the point. They've built successful businesses, but don't think of themselves as business people or professionals.
Amen to that, right? You think about collision shop owners, and if the number's 35,000 or 30,000 or 40,000, I don't know what the shop count number really is. It kind of meanders between that 30 to 40 range, right, for the past several decades.
Right.
The reality is those individual business owners, the mom and pop, so to speak, the guy hung the shingle out to start his business because he was probably working for somebody else and he felt like the guy was taking half my money, right? That whole commission model that we've all grown to love or hate, whatever the case might be. Right. And so I'm going to go across the street and start my own body shop because I can make more money. I don't have to share. And they're not inherently not business people. I mean, that's just the fundamental foundation of entrepreneurship and capitalism, and what's great about America, right, is that you can go do that. And it doesn't mean that you have all of the nuts and bolts to do it effectively. And if you don't make that decision, like we were talking about a moment ago, to work on your business and you stick with working in your business, it's where you get stuck, right? And you can build a great, fantastic business. I grew up with my mom being a retailer. She was a florist, and she had a single location, and she designed the flowers. She sold the flowers. She cleaned the shop. It was her duty, right? She was a sole proprietor in the pure definition.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to do that in today's business, particularly in what we do with automotive and the sophistication of the cars that we're working on. To have a hobby shop and make money at it today is almost impossible. You have to go at it as a professional, right? And that's a hard thing to become without giving the focus and time to understand that side of it, that business side of it, for sure.
Right. And I think it takes a lot of humility too, because you've got to know what you don't know. And we're fortunate in this industry to have such great resources out there, like Mike Anderson, Dave Lohr. There's so many great consultants that are out there that are, and these are resources that are available to all shop owners. Okay. And I think, that's really where we sometimes got to step back and say, okay, what don't I know? Okay. Where is my unique Jesus? What do I need to evolve and become? Where's the industry leading that, that's going to cause me so I can become what I need to for where the industry is going, and then being able to start taking those steps to follow it. one of the things I want to talk about is some of the changes that are happening out there in the industry now. So I know, like, working with Rivian, you've got to see firsthand about what's happening with, luxury EVs, those type of things. We're starting to see more emphasis being put on certifications. ADAS is another big thing. What are some of the things that you're seeing out there in the industry, are directions that independent owners need to be looking at to survive into the next decade?
Yeah. Matt, I'll tell you, if you were going to hold a gun to my head and tell me to pick one thing, I would tell you, as somebody who's been a lifelong lifer in this business and seen the transition, kind of been at the tip of a lot of spears and innovation, and on the forefront of a lot of the evolution that we've witnessed over the last 3 decades, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, if you're not focused on understanding, I won't say specifically electrification and electric cars, because that's a pretty broad statement, but more about the architecture of those vehicles from a perspective of, how do I work on a car that's connected?
Yeah.
That's going to be the future understanding of a shop owner, and figuring out how to satisfy that customer and deliver the product that they put their shingle out for to deliver. And I will tell you, a connected car is so different than that car that's over your shoulder, or most of the cars that are in our driveways, right? I speak a lot about my experience with Rivian, and I owned Rivian. I had an R1T and an R1S both, and neither one of those vehicles ever went back to Rivian service. But the product that I took delivery of the day that I purchased it, and the product that I sold when I ultimately traded them in, was completely different. The car's capability, the function, the creature features, all of the things that are on the vehicle were not the same as the day that I took delivery of it. And it never went in to have anything modified or changed at the service center.
Yeah.
It was all done through over-the-air updates. And that's what we talk about, a connected car, and how the technology on that car is architected, and how it's all meshed together, and the way they stitch the systems. The days of just a bumper hit, guys, they're gone. There's no such thing as a bumper hit anymore. It's a collision. It's an accident. It means you have to do full assessment of that entire vehicle's architecture, not just the physical thing that you can see. Because now if you take the laptop that you and I are working on here today and dropped it on the floor, what would happen to it? Right? A connected car is exactly the same. You can have a minor impact to that car that appears to be a front bumper, but if you don't do a full assessment of the digital life or the digital systems on that vehicle,
right,
is it going to be right? Is that owner going to be safe the next time he's out and subjected to the same situation again?
Right.
I wouldn't want to bet on that. I'm not going to put my business's risk on saying it is safe if I didn't actually validate and verify it. So that would be what I would tell you. If you're going to pick one thing, make sure you're aware and understanding and stepping into the visibility of what connected vehicles are going to bring to your business operation model, because it's going to change significantly.
Right. So let me, but I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here, just for some role playing, because I think it's a concern that many shop owners have. So let's say, okay, Frank, I can understand that, but what if I'm not going to get paid for that? What if, the insurance companies are going to say, oh, that's not what you did there was not necessary, and we're not going to reimburse you. I mean, how does a shop owner attack that? Because this has been a conversation of ours with many of the shop owners, especially in our collision cocktail hour, for many months. And, so I'm going to kind of throw that question out to you. How do we address these things if there's a potential that we couldn't get paid for them?
Matt, here's the deal. It's a hard topic to talk about. It's a hard conversation to talk about. Consumers in general typically expect their auto insurance just to take care of everything, and I just show up and pay the deductible. When the reality is insurance has evolved. It's changed what its purpose is. Health insurance. None of us go to the doctor today expecting to pay the $10 copay and walk out never paying anything else. We know there's going to be a subsequent bill coming with that. I think as industry representatives, it's incumbent upon us to continue to preach and scream at the top of the mountain and at the bottom of the mountain to the everyday consumer to understand the complexity of the vehicles that they're driving. So when they are involved in repair, I mean, think about mechanical service. You don't go to the dealer and expect to pay a flat deductible to get something done to the car. You pay the service bill, right?
Right.
Collision's not different. And I think that's where we have done an injustice on ourselves and across the industry, is by putting ourselves in the shoes of the consumer and having the empathy because of the passion that we have for this business and the concern and just the pure caringness that comes from who we are. Right. And this poor person who had an accident, they've already had a bad situation, and now I'm going to put some salt in the wound by telling them, sorry, your $500 deductible is actually $2,300 because your bill payer said that these things are not covered and I did the work and I have to be paid for them, right? How do we have that conversation? But as that, it comes back to the early part of our conversation, honestly, Matt, that's where you got to become a professional.
Yes.
That's where you have to understand what operating a business is and work on your business and not in your business, and understand that you have technical folks to make sure the car's fixed properly. It's your job with your name on the sign out front to say, here's my fee for doing the repair the right way. Mr. Insurance Company, I'm sorry that you don't feel this way. Your contract is with your vehicle owner. I'm going to bill them. They're going to have a conversation with you and figure out where indemnification needs to come from based on the insurance contract that I have. That's how we have to go about it. Body shop owners, unfortunately, are not skilled to have that conversation, right? And so we swallow it and we watch profitability go the wrong direction, or we complain about it and gripe about it to all of us that feel the same, commiserate about it, right? Instead of trying to figure out how we change it. And I think everybody's actively trying to figure out how to change it. But truthfully, we have to firm up in how we present this to the consumer on the front side. And we have to do it collectively as an industry, and not be afraid of the guy across the street who's going to cut your throat because you said that you're going to charge more for it and I can take my car across the street and get it fixed for less. Educate that consumer and tell him why your bill's more.
Yeah.
Help him understand that what he's bringing, why he's or she's bringing it to you, is because you're going to fix the car properly. And here's all of the information that goes into doing so. If you choose to go somewhere else to somebody who might do it for you, just your deductible, do your due diligence. Are they going to fix it the way that I've just explained that I'm going to fix it to you? We've got to educate the consumer. Oddly, you mentioned Mike Anderson. I had the pleasure of sitting on a call that he did yesterday with the Texas Auto Body Association.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike said he's been, questioning this notion that the average consumer ends up in a body shop every 7 to 10 years. It wasn't sitting well with him. So he went in and dug in to find the research on really what that number is. You know what he found, Matt? He found that number is 18 years now. A consumer only visits a body shop once in every 18 years.
Wow.
Now, you tell me something you purchased 18 years ago that you would expect to walk back into today and pay the same price for.
Right. Oh, that's exactly right. There's no doubt about it. And I think, too many times we get stuck in our own paradigms. And like I said, shop owners are kind of looking at things from their perspective. It's funny, even, my core business being, financial planning and investment advisory, I have to be real careful that I don't start talking what I call broker speak. That it's, I'm talking about, asset allocation and Pareto models and those type of things. Because my average client has no idea what I'm talking about. And I think the shop owners need to sometimes get out of, take the blinders off and start to look at it from a customer's perspective. Now that I know what to look for as a consumer, but before I started really working in this industry, I thought it was like, okay, yeah, I get in an accident, I call the insurance company, I file my claim, they tell me where to send my car, I do that, and then I got a deductible to pay, and that's it. It's changed completely, and I think, it was actually interesting because this came up in our collision cocktail hour because we were talking about insurance short pays and how to address those things. And one of the owners out of Chicago talked about, and he used the term professional. And I said, that's a key thing. I said, first off, what does a professional do? A professional is always learning, is always training. They're always keeping updated. I think today's shop owner needs to learn sales skills. to educate the customer, taking the customer through, okay, here's the process that we follow, and here's why we follow it, and actually walking them through that. And there's an old sales technique, it's called pre-framing. And pre-framing is about anticipating the objections and answering them up front. So, I think a shop owner needs to sometimes go and say, okay, and here's how we want to do things right. So we want to use manufacturer parts. Now, in a lot of cases, the insurance companies come back and they don't want to pay for that. Here's why we do this, and here's what your rights are under that. So you're kind of setting the customer up on the front end to realize that there's going to be pushback from the insurance company. I think the second thing, and you touched on this too, that it's not just individually, but collectively. I think the industry, and especially associations specifically, need to start pulling resources together to put out resources to educate customers that don't know how the process actually works. I mean, I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, amen to that, because that's where it all begins, right? If you're an educated consumer, when you walk in to purchase something, you already have a good armament of information to be able to make that purchase. Who researches collision repair shops? No, nobody, because it's a reaction, right? You never anticipate. It's just like even working at Rivian, we had this internal conversation within the collision team a number of times. How do we get the consumer educated on the collision process at the time of purchase? And as a manufacturer, they're like, oh my gosh, we would never want to talk to a potential vehicle buyer about having to get a collision repaired, right? That's a negative. That's just draws an instant bad picture. And that's the reality of the industry that we're in, right? Is collision is negative. And it is. It's an unfortunate accident, right? It's an unfortunate situation that someone finds themselves in. And how do we as an industry figure out how to bring that from being such a negative to more of a being an educated consumer, right? Somebody who understands what the process is. Yeah, do I ever want to go through it? No, I hope I never have to go to a body shop. But if I do, I know what the expectation is, and I know that I may have to pay more than what my insurance company is willing to pay for these reasons. If I want it fixed this way, if I want to get I used to use as an adjuster, I used to use, aftermarket parts. Obviously, back in the day, that was even a bigger deal than it is today almost. And I would have a body shop say, wow, I'm not putting an aftermarket fender on. And my defense as an insurance adjuster was, well, but don't you put aftermarket brake pads on that car?
Yeah.
You're going to allow aftermarket brake pads to stop because you go to Napa and put your aftermarket brake pads on. What's wrong with an aftermarket fender? That's how I combated that conversation, right? And usually the body shop owner's like stammered and stuttered and like, well, I can't really argue that point. He's not wrong about it. But did the consumer get to choose, right? Yeah. In that scenario, did the consumer get to choose? Did you as a shop owner educate your consumer to say, I'm going to put Napa brake pads on, or we can go to the Ford dealer and buy the OEM Ford brake pads. Here's the differences, and here's what you need to know between what you're getting for. And understand that your policy you signed, you agreed to, and none of us read it, but we all signed and agreed to it, says that I can actually do that as an insurer and pay for the less expensive part. I agreed to purchase that product from my insurance provider, right? Those are the things that as an industry, as societies, as groups, associations, we can bring that message forward. It needs to be put in front of legislators so that they have visibility to it, because that's where it starts to resonate, and that's where you get more of a consumer awareness approach from it. Consumers aren't looking at collision associations to get information from them, but collectively as associations stand up and become stronger. Texas Auto Body Association is fantastic, right? It's one of the strongest in the country.
Yep.
We have a lot of advocacy. We have a lot of support at the state legislation. We have a lot of experience with folks who are involved in the board of the association that other associations could leverage and partner up with and come up with a united voice, right? Because that's really what it boils down to, Matt, is how do we get to the point that we're all singing from the same hymnal, right? I mean, ultimately, that's what a consumer can now have trust and faith in, because the message now becomes consistent versus driving around to 3 or 4 body shops and getting 3 or 4 estimates that all have a different dollar on them. And one guy explained it one way and one guy explained it another way. And I'm a consumer that haven't been here for 18 years. How the heck am I supposed to know?
Right.
Talk about professional, right? We need to be a professional. there's really only one way to fix a car, and that's the right way. That's the only way to do it, right?
Amen. Amen. And that's I think, for the independent shop is really going to be the way it's going to thrive. And maybe it's going to be there. We're in an environment where we're going to add, but through subtraction. And
Yes.
maybe we become niched. Maybe we focus on one certification or maybe a couple certifications, or maybe we're just EV certified or whatever that is, but we become narrow. It's interesting because I've done that in my industry. And, again, because I focus with, just in the collision industry, and my peers are like, you're crazy. I can't believe you would do something like that. And I'm like, the amazing thing about it is that it actually, by going narrower, you create actually more abundance in your own mind, because it's like, okay, this is the universe. So let's say there's, let's say 40,000 collision shops out there. 70% of them are independent, family owned. If you look at any of those that are doing probably, $2 million and up in revenue, there's about 12,000 of them. Okay. And I mean, I can't work with 12,000.
Right.
I can't work with 12. I just physically can't do that. And I can handle all the people in the world, and I still couldn't do 12,000. Okay. Yep. And so, as a shop owner, if we got, I was talking to the guy I was telling you about in Illinois, who was basically a GM certified shop, and they actually all their technicians have ASE certifications in addition, which is given them the highest gold ICAR standard. Okay,
ICAR standard, yes.
So it's given them that highest ICAR standard, and so and that's what they focus on. Right. The other thing we talked about, and this was interesting, he's doing this too, was he said, why can't your adjusters have appointments? Why do we just allow them to pop in? And, you go to your dentist, you don't just pop into your dentist. You don't just pop into your attorney's office. You don't pop into your CPA's office. Well, think about how technical it is to fix a car. Are they not professionals as much as, and have a specialized knowledge as much as a physician or a CPA or an attorney? Why not think the same way? And wouldn't it be cool if you now book appointments for your adjusters that are at the same time as your clients are? So now you got all three, and they can have an actual
have a conversation,
dialogue. Right?
Mm-hmm. Amen. That's the key, right? I used to say it all the time when I was insurance, and I pride myself on the work that my team did. Small insurance company. I did a stint at State Farm, as you mentioned, but I spent the longest part of my career with a small insurance company. And we really prided ourselves on involving the repairer and the consumer together. Yeah. Understanding that what our part in the equation was, and that we were the bill payer, we were not the repairer. While we had plenty of technical expertise on the team to understand what was required to fix the car properly, we also leaned on the repairer to help us understand new things, because we weren't in the shop fixing cars every day, and we needed their input and guidance on how these repairs would go. But more importantly, let's make sure that all three legs of the stool are at the table for the conversation, because it takes all three to stand it up so that there's a seat for that consumer to sit on, right? Yeah. You have to have the manufacturer, you have to have the repairer, you have to have the insurance company there. Let's support that consumer who's going to be sitting on that stool or sitting in that driver's seat after the repair's all done, trusting the professionals, the three professionals that they just basically put their life in their hands, that they return that car to them so it performs the same way that the manufacturer said it would in a subsequent accident.
Right.
That's you nailed it. If we could get to that understanding of this truly is an engaging process, it isn't a drop your car off and pick it up. There's much, much more involved in this. And to do it properly, we need your engagement as the consumer, the vehicle owner, to understand and sign off on what we're doing so that you have full awareness, right? But we don't do that. It's too technical. It's too hard to explain. How do we make that I don't have time to take an hour ICAR class. How in the world can I spend an hour with every consumer and insurance adjuster? Right. Well, if you go down the line, right? What's the saying? Slow down and go fast.
That's right.
If you spend the 5 minutes up front, how many minutes are you going to get back on the back end, right? Think about the supplements that you have to turn in that take days to get approved, and the car's sitting there taking up your money on your parts that you've got set now. Your technician's frustrated because he has got a car that he can't bill out and get paid for. Your consumer's mad because he's expecting a car back and you missed something that now you got to get approval for that takes an extra week. Your rental car company's bad. And oh my gosh, now your keys to keys are bad. And now your score is going to go down and now, and everybody's in a panic, right?
Mhm.
All of that time gets resolved when you involve everybody up front and you spend that hour and you teach them, right?
Yeah. And I do think it's got to be a collective effort between not just the insurance companies and the repairs, but I think the associations for education. And I think you hit a great point earlier on about legislation and working with our legislators and explaining them, this is what we're facing. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of Mike Anderson's statistics, but like Rhode Island has the highest paid for repair
Customer
amount.
pay. Yep.
Yeah, customer pay amount in the country because of legislation that's come out, and I think it's all important to do. But I know
Yeah.
we're like at time, and
Yeah.
we could just go on and on, Frank. And maybe we'll take up the discussion a little, maybe at another time. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
We didn't get to the ADAS stuff, which
I
is kind
know.
of the space
I
I'm
wanted
in,
to.
and that's perfectly okay. It's such a hot topic and everybody's talking about it. I think there's a lot of awareness around that, Matt. I think that the key piece that I'd love to leave everybody with is that there's really only one way to fix the car, and that's the right way. And that encompasses everything that we've talked about today, the technology, the physical repair of the vehicle, involving the bill payer and involving the consumer.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's the best way that all of us can succeed at my ultimate goal of leaving the industry better than I found it. We've all got to kind of incorporate that equation into the way we do business. And it takes partners to do that, right? You talk about specialization. It isn't just about staying focused in one or two brands. It's also figuring out what you're capable of doing in your shop. And when you're not capable of completing a portion of the repair, that you find a partner that can help you out with that and do so that protects your own liability. That's the other piece of it. As an ADAS sublet provider, by golly, man alive, we don't calibrate cars in parking lots. I can tell you that. Nobody else should be doing that either. And if you're letting your consumer or your vendor do that for you, you're not advocating for your consumer and fixing that car right. And that's just going to be the last.
I think we should definitely talk about that. All right, and have another conversation about that.
For sure.
Again. Yeah. Frank, I'm going to have your contact information at the bottom of the show notes. Anybody wants to reach out to Frank, like I said, we're going to do another quick episode on the ADAS. So, because I think that's a really important thing. And I know we just kind of got off on on more of the industry stuff and just kind of ran out of time here. So I want to thank you, Frank, for being on Your Business, Your Life with me, Matt DiFrancesco. And the last thanks always goes to you, the audience. Without you, we wouldn't be able to have a great guests like we have here. And if you like what you're hearing, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. That way, anytime a new episode comes out, you can download directly to whatever advice. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll get notifications on any content that's out there. Get to see great guests like we have with Frank, and you'll get to hear the next episode with Frank, where we're going to touch on some ADAS topics. So anyway, but with that, I want to again thank you for listening. Take care and God bless, and have a great day. Hey, I really want to thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. If you want to be notified when new episodes become available, click the subscribe button below.
All information is obtained from sources deemed reliable but not guaranteed. No tax or legal advice is given nor intended. Content provided herein or on our website should not be construed as an offer for investment advice or for securities, insurance, or other investment products. Investments involve the risk of loss and are not guaranteed. Consult a qualified legal, tax, accounting, or financial professional before implementing any investments or strategy discussed here. HighLift Financial is a DBA for DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC. Investment advisory services are provided through Cornerstone Planning Group, LLC, an independent advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission.